All right, hello people, this is Peggy, and I'm going to talk to you about the engineering notebook basics. And the big deal this year is there's going to be a few changes. Okay, wait a second. What did you do?
Use the scroll.
Okay. Okay, new this season. You must turn in an engineering portfolio to be considered for any judged awards. Now, that does not mean you're not doing an engineering notebook, but you must have an engineering portfolio. And so, and I'll go into a little bit more depth with this. Please understand that what I know about this came from Game Manual 2, which I got a chance to read last night. So all of this is new. So there may be several questions that I'm unsure of, and I'll do my best to answer those questions. It doesn't work. Just to remind you that your engineering notebook, and in this case, your portfolio, which is a summary of your engineering notebook, it needs to show your journey, your design, your team as a whole. It is one of the 4 things that the judges are going to be looking at. They're going to listen to your interview and perhaps remotely to your video. They're going to look at your engineering notebook. They're going to watch you on the field, and they may come do pit some interviews in the pit. So this notebook is the tangible piece that they're going to look at and refer back to in relationship to all of the judged awards. And you cannot win a judged award without a notebook. And this year you cannot win without a portfolio in addition. Scroll. Okay, this is last year's, and I recognize that. I am sure there will be a new version of this coming out. This is last year's engineering notebook guide, and it refers to things that are going to show up. So I know this will come out shortly. This is your best guide. You should read it from beginning to end. It goes over everything that the judges are looking for and everything that makes a good notebook. It also gives you a place to go to find examples of other really good notebooks that you might want to look at, and tells you what the judges are looking for when they are looking at your notebook. Inside that, and it usually is also listed under the resources. All of this is on team management resources. This is last year's. There will be a new one for this year, and it'll say portfolio. There is a self-assessment. This is again like knowing the questions to a test before you take the test. You want to see what if you go through all of this and you need to read it now and not at the end of the season, you go, oh my gosh, do I have everything I need in my notebook? Read it as you're going now, and perhaps you may split some of these things up among your team members to make sure that although everybody helps with the engineering notebook, that someone is specifically aligned to say, okay, let's look at what I need to have for this, and then I am responsible to make sure that happens. Inside of last year's was this list of what is required. In Game Manual 2, let me pull that up for you. Alt tab.
Yeah. No, hold down Alt and press tab.
Oh, just a second. I'm trying to get that. No.
You got to hold it till you see it.
Okay. I can't get it. Okay, just a minute. There it is.
That's a PowerPoint slide.
There it is. Right there. Oh, you pulled up a bunch of that. That's the wrong thing. Never mind. It disappeared when you. Okay. This is in. I'm gonna have to get it back. This is in the new new game manual. It's in both of the remote and the regular one. What is he looking for? Okay, my bad. Here it is. Okay, and this, and it, I'm not going to scroll all the way through it, but it lists all of the awards and what your portfolio must match in order to get these awards. Now, all of this information, of course, is going to be in your engineering notebook, but you're going to have to transfer pick and choose what you're going to put in your portfolio, because that gives the judges a smaller thing to look through and the chances of them reading everything in your portfolio versus two huge engineering notebooks. Does not mean you're not going to give them your engineering notebook, and they may want to go back and find something specific that you refer to in your portfolio, but it allows the judges to have a view of you without paging through 100 pages of CAD drawings and everything else. All of that needs to be there, but this is a new thing that's happening this year. So I need to go back. Okay, let me go back to the presentation. Okay, so this is what you're going to see if you go look at it from this year's engineering notebook. So you're going to want to look at the new one when it comes out, and I do not know when it'll come out. But they did say that the self-assessment for the portfolio will be coming out. One of the other things that you may want to look at, and again, I pulled last year's, is and it was referenced in last year's engineering notebook appendix at the end, but you can also pull it off of the first page, is the judge summary sheet. This is the summary sheet given to the judges, and this is what they're going to be looking at when they look at your notebook. Again, knowing what to study for a test makes it easier to study. Okay, the teacher in me is coming out. So if you know they're going to be looking for these specific things, then you should be paying attention to these when you go through your notebook and when you go through your portfolio. Again, I expect this will change, but you have everybody has access to this because it's posted on the first page. So I would definitely go through this and look to see what specific things the judges are going to be looking for, because this is what they're going to get in their training. Okay, the requirements. Last year there were several specific requirements. This year the only thing listed in the manual is that your team number and team name must appear on the outside cover of both the notebook and the engineering portfolio. That's literally the only thing listed as a requirement. However, there were several suggestions, highly recommended, which I would pay attention to. This is what first says is in an engineering notebook. The reason I put this up is you'll see everything. Everything you do should be in your engineering notebook. All your outreach, all your team information, all of your successes, when things fail and you test it and it fails and you change it again, all of that should be in there, not just the final product, because you don't go from A to B perfectly. There's got to be some things that didn't work right. Why didn't they work it? How did we tweak it? That kind of things needs to be in there. That's all part of the design process in engineering and should show up. Okay, you should have, there's 3 sections in your engineering notebook. And the first is the obvious one, the engineering section, your CAD drawings, your handmade drawings that are going to get copied over, all of your programming, all of the building section. This is everything to do with the robot and the technical side of it. It's more than just robots. It's a team that builds the robots. So there should be a team section. And in the team section, there needs to be all of your outreach, your activities. If you listen to the Mustangs do their Connect and Motivate Award, they talked about all the things that they have done and gave you suggestions that would go in this section. The third section is, you can call it any of these names, a business plan, strategic, what is your sustainability? This is your funding, your budgeting, how do you get more mentors? How are you going to make sure your program continues? What kind of grants did you get? All of the things, because you're basically running a small business, and this is the business plan of it. That's been in FRC for quite a while. It's an expected part of FTC and a requirement for several of the awards. Hey, format. Given that this year's going to probably be mostly remote, you're going to be looking at doing both your portfolio and your notebook electronically. Doesn't mean you can't do some things handwritten, because that can be scanned in. If you are at a remote event, everything has to be uploadable in a format like a PDF that can't be edited in a single stream. So both your engineering notebook and your portfolio must be uploadable and electronic. So therefore, if you're going to do things that are handwritten at all, you're going to need to take a picture of them and or scan it in. It's recommended that you not do it if you know you're going to be remote, to not depend entirely on handwritten, because completely scanned copies often are not going to translate well when they're shipped to the judges. So something for you to think about. It doesn't mean, again, you can't do some things that are hybrid, and you certainly can take pictures of drawings and upload them. So there's ways to do both of that, but start thinking, if you have never done one electronically, start thinking electronically. And that said, one of the very first things you're going to want to do is select a template. I just have a few samples up here. I found these templates by Googling. There's several really good teams that have done their entire program electronically, and they have put their entire engineering notebooks online. Go look, go see what works for them. At a bare minimum, you want your name at the top of every page, and you want the date, and you're going to want to put who attended on each one, and you're going to have the initials at the bottom and who approved. In other words, who wrote, the initials of all the people who wrote, and then the initials of somebody who did their proofreading, or so that you're seeing it twice. So I'm not going to tell you there's one specific one. There's a lot of things out there. You can choose what you want to, but this template should be decided really early on, so you're not reinventing the wheel. Okay, your portfolio. This is the new part. It's a summary of the engineering notebook. Okay, so literally it's going to be a summary, and a few things that and there's not a lot out there about this yet, so I expect that you should be looking at the forums. Everybody's on the same footing here, because we've never required an engineering portfolio, so it's not like you can go look at somebody's. So you're going to have to think about how you want to do that. Okay, but there are a few requirements. Okay, the first is you have to have one. To be considered for judged awards, you have to submit an engineering notebook. Depending on how the remote is done, particularly with remote, it may be very, very difficult to upload a 400-page engineering notebook, but a portfolio will be much easier to upload, and much easier, again, for judges to be able to read. I put in red the second part. This is the important part, and this is where you'll need to be looking at. Total pages, not to exceed 15 pages. So you're going to have to decide what's most important out of your engineering notebook that you want those judges to see. What are you going to highlight? And there's nothing that says that you have to do so many pages of this and so many pages of that. I couldn't find anything before someone asked whether your cover page counts in your 15 pages. I do not know that. I'm sure somebody's going to ask that question. I don't have the answer to that. I'm certainly going to put that in the forum and ask. When you apply for the control award, there is a separate submission form, and that's not included in your 15 pages. And the last requirement, which is what I said before, your team number must appear at the top of the front page of the engineering portfolio. So as I read that, and I took this directly out of the manual, that you may not want a cover page like you would normally do in an engineering notebook. And they're not considered without that information. Okay. When it says we strongly recommend, we is first, we is the author of the game manual, because I pulled this from this when I read it last night. They highly recommend, remember those 3 sections in your notebook, they highly recommend that you do a summary of each of those 3 sections. It doesn't have to be equal amounts with each one, but obviously you want to summarize your building and the technical side of a robot. You built a robot, all the pieces, parts that go into the building of that robot, including some but not all of your CAD drawings, perhaps something special in your in all of your programming. Maybe you want to highlight a specific part of your robot that you're really proud of. Remember, that is one of the design awards is a specific part. So you should be reading those awards, and your portfolio should make sure it covers what's important in each one of those awards. If you listen to Kathleen Gately talk about it, if you want to be inspire quality, you've got to show that you could basically win each one of those awards. And this engineering portfolio is your ticket in many ways of showing that, particularly in a remote event. Secondly, there needs to be that summary of that team information. So think about what you heard for the Connect and the Motivate Awards and what's important for that. And you really want to highlight some of those outreach activities, and because that's your opportunity for those. And the last thing is, again, you want to summarize that business plan. What did you do for fundraising? Where are you getting your money? How are you getting your mentors? How do you plan to, I like the line, the development of new skills. That's all part of your sustainability. Are your older team members teaching your younger team members, and how is that working so that it's seamless when you have someone graduating, you don't lose all your ability to program when that person graduates. So all of those things are part of that section. And in order to, again, to win some of the awards last year, can't speak for this year, but last year that was required. Again, the requirements for each of the awards and the portfolio is in the game manual, and that's currently already published, and I'm sure it'll be in the new one that's coming out. Okay, here's some tips that I picked up, again, from teams who have won Think Award at some pretty high level events. And some of this goes back to when you had handwritten ones, so we'll talk about that also. Everything is documented. I cannot say that enough. Everything is documented. You're going to pick and choose what goes in your portfolio, but it needs to be in your notebook so you remember to pull it out for the portfolio. So if you're documenting as you're going along, it is too easy to go meet together, build, and then look at each other and go, oh, who put that in the notebook? Need to figure that out, need to have that template right away, need to be putting things in immediately so you don't leave any of that out. Your portfolio and your notebook should be organized well enough that an outsider can understand your team and your journey. Remember, the person reading that portfolio, you will not necessarily be in the room when they're looking at it, because they're not looking at it when you're doing your presentation, they're looking at it afterwards. And they may have heard 10 other presentations, and now they're going back and looking at your notebook. And they may look at the notebook of a team that they didn't, if it's not a remote event, maybe you did not present to this group, but yet they're reading your notebook. So think about that when you're looking at it. Anything that you do that is handwritten needs to be in permanent ink, not pencil. Even when you take a picture of it, it's going to be obvious that you did it in pencil, not pen. So think about that. And that's a standard with any engineering notebook. Every time you start a new meeting, it's a new page in your notebook. So you're going to start your new template page every time you start. Date, start times, stop times. The standard way that FIRST does it is a task column and a reflection column. Again, there's other options out there that work just as well. Figure out what you're going to do, but the task and reflection works really well. We're going to be doing, and you may want to, at the bottom of it, have something that says, our to-do list for the next meeting, so that you show the continuity between today's meeting and tomorrow's. Everybody on the team needs to participate. So you should see initials for every different team members throughout the book somewhere, and that needs to be initialed and dated. And then you also have somebody review a page day. And so get everybody involved in that. You may have one person who's in charge, but that person does not write everything. And while I'm talking about writing it, this is not your AP English exam. You're not turning in an AP English report. There can be mistakes. There can be misspelling. If you're doing it electronically, it'll probably catch them. It is okay. This is not a Pulitzer Prize winning. It is what's going on at that time. Some students are afraid to write in it because they may not spell something right, or it doesn't look right, or they don't want to draw because it doesn't look right. The judges aren't looking at that. And in fact, it's pretty obvious that everybody participating when they see, don't misspell on purpose, but do remember that they're not looking at punctuation and things like that. They're looking at the content, and they're looking at the journey of your team when they look at that notebook. All your designs, any changes, everything you do, the thing that didn't work, that great idea that you were going to do that didn't work, but you tried it, should be there, because that's what they're looking for. And if you want to highlight a specific, let's say the mechanism that drops your wobbly goal over the side, maybe it was the third iteration that finally got that. You want to highlight those 3 iterations if that's something you want to highlight for the design award, so that the judges look at that and go, this is what when you're saying this is what we're most proud of and this is how we got to there, that's way more important than just showing the finished product. You'll see on number 7, if you are handwriting something that you are then going to just take a picture of or scan, you never erase anything, you never use correction fluid. Again, even though you're just taking a picture of it, all of that will show. You're just lying through it, because that's the way a standard engineering notebook is done. You do want to include some of your software development. You're probably not going to want to put in 100 pages of code in your engineering notebook. It's your choice, but in the past you were allowed only 2 engineering notebooks. I can't find anything in relation to that this year because the new manual's not out, but there's no reason to put 200 pages of code in there. But you do want to put some code in there specific to something that's really important for you, or you want that code in there so that you can refer back to specific measurements and things that you've put in that have worked. For example, if you're doing autonomous on the red and you're wanting to do autonomous on the blue, but it's a different position, you may have already done some of the math that's done for that. Again, it should be organized into sections. The beauty of electronic is you can move stuff around, but it should be set up such that somebody can go through it and see everything in an organized manner. Please make sure you number every page. That also helps the judges when they're reading it. Okay. Things that need to go in there. Okay, you've got, I'm just quickly going to go through this. This is the stuff you know. On your team section, and what you pull over to portfolio is yours, but don't forget in your team section to do some bragging. If you've got some kids that have won some individual awards that are related to robotics, put that in there. And make sure you put in specific things about your outreach and your connections, and that will go in the team section. Your business plan, those, you've got to have it for those 3 awards. And this
portfolio gate.
This is also a SWOT is something that's really probably should be in one of those. Look up somebody else's. If you've never done one before, they'll give you some great ideas. The engineering section, we know that this is a good line. They should be able to rebuild your robot by looking at your notebook. So if they can't rebuild the robot by reading through your notebook, you didn't put everything in it. Meeting notes, pictures, CADs, math calculations, diagrams, measure your obstacles, changes in programming, all of that has to be in that notebook. Lessons learned, again, make sure everybody contributes, and make sure you use the self-assessment form from first for both the portfolio and your notebook. Okay, I've gone through really quickly on this, and at this point, although I may not be able to answer your questions, I will attempt to answer any questions that you have. I want to give you enough time to ask questions in the chat. Okay, I need the chat up and on. It's unlocked. I don't know whether I have any. Okay.
So I don't see any questions. Okay, we go.
Only the engineering judge, not the notebook. What I have read says both will be turned in. Having been a judge, I probably would look through the portfolio and then I would refer to, so suppose there's 2 or 3 teams that we're really looking at in depth, then I probably would go over and look at the engineering notebook. That's just me having been a judge. Because that portfolio is required, I'm thinking that they're going to look at that first and then refer, and it says in suggestions to make sure that that portfolio links back to your engineering notebook. Let's see, well, do you recommend numbering each section separately or as one long document? I might do them each separately because you might be working on all 3 sections at the same time. So you might have somebody really working on the team section while in separate while somebody else is working on the other. But there's no requirement. What are some of personal team member awards? NCWIT. When I coached, I had some students win that award. I had some students, for example, who took some engineering courses or some other things outside that they then use that information. So you might want to brag about that. Before we went to Worlds, all of my kids had been accepted to college and a lot of them had chosen engineering choices. So we did a special section in there with their Drake pictures and where they were going to college and what they wanted to major in and how robotics had helped them choose that. Just think about so that the judges get to know your kids better and how robotics impacted them. The engineering notebook submission will be sent to the judge electronically. Yes, in a remote, and it specifically says that if it's an in-person event, you need to be able to give a paper copy to the judges. So it depends on the type of event you're at. How should the portfolio link back? In other words, the way I read that is that you might, if you're talking about, let's say, a specific part to the robot and you have several CAD drawings and you only show one, you might say additional CAD drawings can be found on this page of the engineering notebook. That's how I read that as far as linking back. I would link it back to specific page numbers in your notebook to make it easy for the judges. Will there be a site to upload or via email? I don't have an answer to that yet.
Yeah, we don't know for sure exactly how all of the stuff will get uploaded. The answer is yes, there will be. It'll probably be a Google Drive or something like that. We'll give you the option to upload to, but those details will be worked out as the season goes on.
And the next question is, can the kids insert links to other document other than the notebook? For example, a page with coding information that would take a lot of pages, but they still wanted it to be included, or a video. I do not have an answer to that. My gut feeling is because they're limiting the page numbers, that would be a workaround to get away from the page number limitations. But I have absolutely no idea on that. And I don't know about a QR code. And someone asked it, could you use a QR code for that portion? Again, I don't know how FIRST feels about that because they may consider that outside of the 15 pages. Maybe they think that that's a great idea. How can judge interview also online?
The judge interviews, if we're remote, judge interviews will be done online.
Right. I have not read anything that says there's a page number limit, but the only thing that has come out reference to this is what's in the game manual 2, game manual 1 that was released today. And I did get an opportunity to see it last night so that I could put this together. There was nothing in that, but every year they put out the entire manual on engineering notebook, and it should be in that, but that's not out yet that I know of.
Just remember that there's always been a 2-3-inch binder limit. That was the other
5-inch binder, I thought it was.
I thought it was 3-inch binder.
Well, maybe it is. It was a notebook binder size that was a limit.
And only 2.
And I know one of the complaints from judges is if you get these 2 huge notebooks and you're at an event that you're looking at 30 different teams, you really didn't have time to do justice, which is why there was a requirement for a summary page. They still highly recommend a summary page in the front of your engineering notebook. And so that helps direct the judges. But the reality is they can't look through an entire huge engineering notebook, which is my best guess why the portfolios come to that. Do we need to cut off? Okay, I obviously need to cut this off. Thank you for listening in. You had great questions. Individually or in the group, we don't know. The summary is a 1-page sheet that is actually in the front cover of the engineering notebook. That was last year's, and it said that they recommend that again for this year inside your engineering notebook first page. But your portfolio will be the up to 15-page document that you turn in. Are we going to need a portfolio and a summary?
Yes.
Yes, the summary will go in your engineering notebook and it'll refer to some tabbed pages, but the big emphasis is going to be on your portfolio because that's going to summarize, but it's 15 pages long, and your summary is just a 1-page document with some tabs on within your engineering notebook. For more information about this outreach, it's on these pages, and it's what you want to highlight. Because the judges are getting it seems to me and there's that whole section in the there that talks about what the portfolio goes with for each of the awards. I would read that carefully and make sure my portfolio looks to that, because I think the judges are going to spend more time on the portfolio.
We're still waiting for all the responses from all the surveys.
Okay.
We have most of the things are probably about.
Do I need to cut? Right?
Yeah, we're
Okay, I'm gonna need to cut out. I'm sorry if I didn't get a chance to answer any of your other questions. We're gonna go back to the mainstream. And again, I thank you for listening in. We do appreciate it and hope some of this gave you, if nothing else, it's probably convinced you that I need to go get this and read this manual, because it obviously is different this year. Thanks.